Whoa. Whoa. When I tell you this is one of the last things I was expecting, I mean it. What in the world is happening? This is not a drill, it's not an out-of-season April Fool's joke. According to a report from Kotaku, an Assassin's Creed Black Flag remake is in development. Now, obviously not confirmed, but Kotaku has leaked a lot of Assassin's Creed and Ubisoft-related things in the past that have turned out to be true. But holy moly, I really was not expecting this. Immediately upon hearing this news, I had so many mixed emotions coming at once. I suppose my initial feeling was just surprise. Of all the Assassin's Creed remakes I was expecting, Black Flag was not very high on that list. I thought for sure there would be an Assassin's Creed 1 remake one of these days, but it seems like we're skipping that and going straight to Black Flag. Honestly, at this moment, I would much prefer an AC1 remake, simply because it's older and in my opinion more deserving of one, since Black Flag is technically the 6th main entry in the series. So it seems strange to me to neglect an AC1 remake and the entire Ezio trilogy, even AC3, and go right to Black Flag. But on the other hand, I love Black Flag, and I'd be lying if I wasn't excited and intrigued by this news. Of course, it's Ubisoft though, so as always, it's important to keep expectations in check. They don't have a great reputation with remakes thus far. Only look at the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake for a good example, and this remake is apparently still in the early stages of development. You know, it's interesting as well because I've often pondered why we haven't seen AC Black Flag get a remaster. AC3 got one after all, which was already 4 years ago now, believe it or not. So one would think logically Black Flag was due up for the next remaster, but that never happened. So perhaps the reason for that was because they were planning on skipping the remaster stage and going right to a remake. Black Flag is about to be 10 years old later this year, which feels insane first of all, but that seems a little too soon for a remake, especially since I feel the original game still holds up very well to this day. But keep in mind, according to the report, the remake is still in early stages of development and probably won't release for at least a few years, so by the time it releases, it could be closer to 15 years since the original game's release, which is close to the time span other remakes have come out in. For example, Resident Evil 4 released an incredible remake this year, 18 years after the original game in 2005, so I don't think 13 to 15 years is too outrageous before attempting a remake. Just look at what The Last of Us did. I think that upset a lot more people, and that was only 9 years after the original game, although there is still some debate among the community if that's really a remake. Still, I'm just a bit confused as to why they chose Black Flag to remake over AC1, but who knows, maybe an AC1 remake is in the works as well, and we just don't know about it. There were a lot of rumors surrounding that last year. It could also be a direct result of the struggles Ubisoft has had with releasing Skull and Bones, and they want to further capitalize on the pirate theme games. I actually made a video a little over a month ago where I expressed how I felt Ubisoft should have focused on developing a sequel to Black Flag instead of Skull and Bones because of the incredible success and popularity of Black Flag, along with the potential for a sequel story. In fact, I'll be honest, I still think I'd prefer that to a Black Flag remake. I'd rather see a sequel to Black Flag come out in a few years as opposed to a remake, but who knows, maybe it's possible that's what this remake actually is and the report got it wrong. I don't think that's very likely though. This is all just so bizarre to me. Apparently Ubisoft Singapore is going to be heavily involved in the development of this Black Flag remake. They of course actually created the naval combat system in the first place, starting in AC3, and were always in charge of the naval aspect of all the AC games. And Skull and Bones is the studio's first full game they developed themselves. Prior to Skull and Bones, they had always been a co-development studio that helped on a lot of the bigger games, again like like working on the naval system for many of the AC games. Now, it doesn't seem like Singapore is the sole studio in charge of this remake, but they are still reported to have a major role in the game's development. Again, kind of odd, considering Skull and Bones isn't even out yet, but hopefully that means they're finally getting close to shipping that game so they can direct their attention towards this remake. And here's hoping what happened with Skull and Bones development doesn't also happen with this Black Flag remake. But now that I've gotten a lot of my initial thoughts and reactions to this news out of the way, I thought it would be fun to discuss what we could potentially see in a remake like this. So first of all, I think the main draw that everybody would be excited about is seeing Black Flag in modern graphics. The original game is still a really good looking game and holds up pretty well in my opinion, especially for a game from 2 generations ago. Not even just in terms of fidelity, but the game has a gorgeous art style and color scheme. It's very lush and vibrant. I can only imagine how insanely good this aesthetic would look with the graphics of the newer games, or potentially much better with this coming out in a few years and all. The character models, the ocean, the weather effects, all of that could look significantly better than it already does, and that prospect excites me. Again, I think AC1 is a game that would benefit far more from updated graphics, but oh well. I do think it'll be nice for there to be a newer version of Black Flag that people can play. With the game being 2 generations ago, it's not entirely accessible to everybody, and that's why I thought giving this game the remaster treatment like AC3 would have made perfect sense, but a remake will fulfill that purpose even better. Those who may have been hesitant to try Black Flag because of its age, even though I personally think the game holds up very well, some people are unwilling to play older games. So this gives an all-new generation of players a chance to experience this game along with all of us who have already cherished it for a long time at this point. However, I'm very curious at exactly what type of remake this is going to be, particularly with the story. Are they going to keep the narrative exactly the same? Will they make minimal or large changes? Are they going to redo all the voice lines and performances? I think Black Flag's narrative is already very good as it is, and Matt Ryan nailed it as Edward Kenway. I can't imagine anyone else voicing the character, but if they are redoing the performances and all for this remake, I'm sure Matt Ryan would agree to come back, since he had such a positive experience while working on Black Flag, and still talks about it occasionally to this day. I don't really think anything in the narrative has aged poorly, unless there's some flaws they want to touch up in the remake, or maybe the overall structure of the missions are different, so they'll have to change a few things up. Or this is just one of those remakes where they keep the story and performances exactly the same. Who knows, it's way too early to tell. But what about the gameplay? I'm very curious what's going to be different. All we know is that Ubisoft Singapore is going to be heavily involved in revamping the naval system. But just how different will they or can they make it? I doubt it's going to be the exact same system, but what exactly would they do to quote-unquote evolve it? Because people already love the naval combat from Black Flag. It's a lot of people's favorite part about the game. So how much do they really need to change about it? I'll tell you what though, it would be really cool if they made the process of boarding different ships a lot more seamless and immersive, perhaps more customization, maybe some more systems involving your crew or the state of the Jackdaw, maybe allow you to do more tasks on your ship. I imagine Singapore is going to use a lot of the knowledge they gained by working on Skull and Bones for better or worse. I'm just curious whether the naval system is going to be completely overhauled and redone, or if they're just going to improve in specific ways where they can and build on what's already there in the original game. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But also this is a remake, so there's definitely an expectation for it to be improved in some dramatic way. And then combat is another thing I'm very interested in. Please don't bring RPG mechanics into this remake. Regardless of if you like the RPG Assassin's Creed games or not, that style is not going to fit for Black Flag. It wouldn't be true to the soul and vision of the game. I would hope they understand that, but I'm still a little worried about it. I bring this up because I wonder what the combat will look like. If they go with the combat system from the newer games, or for a new and improved counter-based system like the original, I'd prefer the latter, personally, because I really like the counter-based system. I think one of the biggest problems with it in Black Flag is it was just too easy, but difficulty options are in like every new Ubisoft game now, so I'd fully expect to have difficulty settings in this remake. I'm hoping they bring back the counter-based system and just touch it up and expand upon it maybe, allow you to use more weapon types along with introducing some more enemy variety, some new tools and gadgets. There are plenty of ways to build on what's already there. I'd say it's a pretty safe bet that they're going to cut back on the tailing missions. Again, I just made a video talking about tailing missions in Assassin's Creed, but the tailing missions and how often they're used is a lot of people's least favorite part about this game. Considering it's such a well-known criticism of Black Flag, I would think cutting back on the amount of tailing is something they would do in this remake. But perhaps one of the best ways to evolve and modernize Black Flag is with its open world. Black Flag's open world is already fairly large, and this remake gives them the opportunity to expand even more. Maybe add some more dense cities, put a little more detail and quests into the more barren, empty islands. Obviously, I'd rather them flesh out the entire world as opposed to just making it bigger, but if they can pull off both, then why not? But I think a huge area they could improve on is removing the loading screens. Imagine if, like Odyssey, you could just travel to any large city or area from your ship without any loading screens. It would make the entire pirate fantasy far more immersive than it already is. That's one very simple but massive way to improve the experience in this remake, in my opinion at least. I know it's kind of pointless to speculate this early on, but you know me, I'm a very curious person and wanted to get some of my ideas and thoughts out there. I just can't help it. And I never expected this to actually be a thing. And if I did, I was expecting a Black Flag remake in like 20 years. I still would have preferred an AC1 remake or a Black Flag sequel even, but it's pretty obvious Ubisoft wants to capitalize on the pirate theme. They kind of failed with doing so with Skull and Bones, so they're going back to Black Flag, which to this day is still the highest selling game in the series. Ubisoft never actually released official unit sales for Valhalla. They said it's made the most money in the series, but we're not sure how much of that is from actual copies sold and how much is from microtransactions. But regardless, it doesn't matter. Black Flag is arguably one of, if not the most popular AC game, and a lot of people's favorite in the series. So I do understand why they would want to remake it, but it is kind of baffling why we're hearing about a Black Flag remake before an AC1 remake. I'm not necessarily disappointed about this, because again, I love Black Flag and I'm very intrigued to see it in modern graphics, but I just feel AC1 deserves it far more. So I'm a little bummed out that AC1 has been neglected, at least for now. I mean, you'd have to think eventually AC1 will be remade, but it just doesn't seem like that's happening anytime in the near future. But hey, for those of us who were concerned about AC Mirage potentially being the last traditional style AC game for a long time, this Black Flag remake, if it's true to the original in that respect, may give a lot of people what they've been looking for. I'll be keeping a lookout for more information as this remake is in development, but in the meantime, let me know what you guys think about this. I don't think any of us really think this remake was necessary, but I'm sure a lot of you are still excited for it regardless. As always, if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you left a like and considered subscribing to the channel if you're new. Special thank you to my members for supporting me, and other than that, thanks for watching, and peace and safety upon you, assassins.